If there's something that needs to get done, you can now do it. The blockers that existed in the previous world are gone because AI can enable you to completely blow past them.
What is it like being a marketing engineer inside of Block right now?
It's pretty close to how I would describe my dream job. It's so fun.
Can you walk through what it's like building an MCP server?
There will probably be a lot of people who hear this and are like, oh my God, that's way off.
Andy McCutcheon is the go-to-market AI lead at Block, a company that's made building a core part of its identity straight from the top down. So when Jack Dorsey talks about a builder mindset, the actual building falls to people like Andy. He runs weekly office hours, ships internal tools, and is mid-build on a MCP router that sends prompts to different models based on task complexity. In this episode, you'll learn exactly how Andy gets non-technical teams to actually build across the entire 6,000-person organization at Block. This is The Marketing Engineer, the show for marketers building with AI. I'm Nick Lafferty. Now, let's bring in Andy McCutcheon. Can you tell me something you've built with AI at work recently?
Actually, right now I'm in the middle of building something to sort of route individual prompt task input through different models based on the complexity of whatever you're trying to achieve. So, most of the time we think about building with AI and we kind of use a single LLM for the entire session. That's a fine approach, but it's not always the best model for like maybe the best task you're trying to do, or maybe the most efficient. And so, having something that you can do quick lookups and have that routed using Haiku, and then come back and do something more like match based with like Sonnet, and then saving Opus for like the more ambitious or like complex tasks. So that's something I'm building right now into my own personal workflow to just sort of like be like a middle layer between the prompt and then like the actual LLM, and just have like a smart router to guide everything I do through like the most optimal model for the task.
That's really smart. I'm guilty of using Opus for everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is, I think, kind of a crutch sometimes. Like, how does that work? Like, how did you build that middle layer that kind of like filters the queries?
Yeah. So first of all, like, I think we all like, using the best model that you have access to, I think is like the best starting point. And I try to tune out a lot of the like hype and stuff in like the news cycle, but it's like the cost of AI is like very much becoming like a thing, and you hear about like companies going through like their AI budget. And so just trying to be proactive and innovative to get ahead of the curve, I started thinking about like, what would it look like to not rely on the most capable model for every single task, and instead try to build something a little bit more efficient. It was pretty straightforward, really. It's just like an MCP layer basically, and it's going to just receive the initial request and then route it through to the appropriate endpoint. And the latency is super small, a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. And I haven't like tested it in production yet. I'm getting very close. I was working on it right before I came here. And but yeah, it's really exciting. And it's just kind of been something off to the side that I've been tinkering with.
Can you, I guess at this point, like take a step back and explain your role and kind of what you do at Block, and then kind of how you transitioned into that role too?
Yeah, for sure. So AI solutions for Block's go-to-market and marketing org. And it's a pretty wide mandate. I work with teams all across sales and marketing. It's really collaborative. Teams will sort of have a use case, and we will find each other and we will sit down and talk about what the need is. Most of the time it's internal tooling to just help teams be smarter and faster and more efficient and more impactful in their work. And so we sit down and we kind of talk through what that could look like, and then, just start working together in a really collaborative way. And it's something that just kind of like happened organically over the last year and a half. I've been at Block for 4 years actually. And I was doing lifecycle marketing for most of my career, always being a little bit more on like the technical side and doing like platform migrations, data analysis for campaigns, really like sophisticated personalization, syntax, stuff like that. And so Block has been so enabling of like an innovative and like AI first culture, and really allowing people to be like, have like a builder mindset. That is like the thing that Jack Dorsey is always advocating, is that we are all builders. And so about a year and a half ago, I just started, really diving into AI and found that I really enjoyed it. And then found that people were starting to just like slowly trickle in and like come to me with like questions that they had. And that turned into like doing weekly office hours. And then that turned into doing bi-weekly sessions where like we would have a topic and we would go through it for an hour. And then right around the end of last year, we were able to like formally transition that into like a full-on like AI marketing role. And then recently, due to just like org structure stuff, shifted over to GTM and sales for all of Block. And so, yeah, they've been great about sort of just allowing that innovation to like find its natural flow and then being like, well, where can we put this like to make it most impactful and letting us figure that out. And it's been really cool.
Was that transition something you went to your boss and said, hey, I want to do this? Or did they come to you?
Yeah, I went to them and, it got to the point where we were able to kind of make the argument that it was like, let's start by like splitting my time 50-50, where like things are good on the life cycle side. We can maintain everything that's going on, but then like, let's dedicate some of my bandwidth to this other stuff. And they were super cool and supportive about that. And so we did that. And, the positive momentum just like kind of kept rolling. And yeah, at the like a few months after that, we were able to be like, hey, like things are still going really well. The drive to be more sort of AI focused in especially marketing roles is continuing to grow. And so we see the demand is, still accelerating and there's still more opportunity for us. So, let's continue to push it. And they were super supportive of that.
How much of your role is doing the work versus enabling other teams?
It varies, right? It kind of fluctuates based on just the nature of whatever's happening in the current moment. It's been like less enablement as of recently, but previous to that, like it was a pretty fair balance. And I think it's just been like people are super busy right now with things and like, people's workload and bandwidth changes. And so I totally understand if people are like, hey, I missed office hours for like the last couple of weeks. I've just been like really busy with a project. It's like, it's all good. Not a big deal. So yeah, I'd say like a lot of it though is building. And I would say like the one thing that I want to spend more time on is more of like the research and like full on like innovation side, because yeah, it's really easy to get like a list of things that feel really exciting to build, and you just like start grinding and you get into that flow and you're just like really happy with seeing all of like the results and showing people prototypes and they get excited. And so you just kind of like, I personally get into a groove where I just like stay in that kind of mode. And then once I'm able to pull myself out and be like, oh, I need to go dive into something new that is like unproven or untested. So try to do a better job of that. But yeah, it's usually pretty well balanced between enablement and just like straight building stuff.
Okay. When you do more enablement, kind of office hours, kind of bi-weekly things, what does the structure of those things look like?
My personal philosophy that I've sort of just kind of developed and championed fully on my own is to be as like casual and approachable and accessible as possible. I think AI came across the entire like tech sector just like a wave, and I think for a lot of people who are non-technical and in non-technical roles, it can be super, super intimidating. And so my entire thing ever since I've been doing this is just to be as approachable and like as accessible as possible. And that was the reason we started doing office hours was, having 300 or 400 people in like a live stream and asking people for questions is like super intimidating for people who are already intimidated. And so, having weekly sessions where like I keep the agenda super open. We just hang out and just talk really comfortably and try to break down those walls that sort of like put people into a mindset of, feeling like they have to be doing it right, or that there even is a right way to do it. And then for like, actual more guided enablement sessions, we will develop sort of like the curriculum or schedule based on like user input. Like I did one for the Block compliance team, and like that one was very much like I worked with their education coordinator and they're like, here's the stuff that the team really wants to dig into. We really want to understand the difference between skills and MCPs. We really want to understand the difference between using Claude Desktop and Claude Code and Claude Cowork and all of the different things, right? So sometimes it's really guided like that, and I get a ton of really good input to structure the session around. And other times it is solely up to me to like come up with what we're going to do. And one of my closest friends at Block, who does a lot of the same stuff I do, came up with the idea of doing hour-long sessions where people will show up and like I'll just share my entire screen and open up Cursor or Claude Code and ask the group for like an idea, like let's build something. Like, what should we build? Somebody's like, build an ROI estimator tool for Square sellers to find out how much they would save by switching to Square. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's start from like literal zero, and you guys can just watch my entire screen while we do this. And if you have questions, you can just stop me in the middle. And I think if you step back and think about it, I don't think many people see other people use AI. We are all off on our computers using AI, and we like build apps, or we like refine docs or presentations, and then we bring it and we're like, hey, I got this, right? And then we go back. And so it's really interesting to sit back and just like watch someone else use a tool like Claude Code or Cursor. And so just showing that and people being like, hey, wait, like, why did you do that in just like a prompt and not like put it into plan mode? And we can step back and be like, well, it wasn't a super complex request and it didn't have multiple steps. And so it's fine to do this next part, though. We will throw it into plan mode and we will go through putting together a structured like implementation spec before moving forward. And that's just kind of like the nuance that you can get into when you're actually just like working literally on a project and everybody's watching.
For someone who's watching who maybe wants to step into a role like yours, do you have any advice for people like that?
You have to be bad at something before you can be good at something. And that's what I tell people all the time when they come and they're just like, I don't even know where to start. They're like, we have all these AI tools and we're all supposed to be building stuff and I don't even know where to start. And I'm afraid I'm going to do it wrong. And I'm like, listen, you're fine. You're totally fine. There's no wrong way to do it. And you have to be bad before you can be good. And so I think like for somebody wanting to do like marketing, AI engineering stuff, I would just say like figure out the best way for AI to extend your creativity. Because a lot of people gravitate towards ideas of how do I use this just like a tool? How do I open this and like get what I want out of it? And I think if you step back and approach it more from a mindset of how do I use this to extend the creative capabilities that I can have, it unlocks a lot more of an open path to where you can find true inspiration and build things that will be really impactful. So yeah, I think that's like the best place to start, is just to like, all of the models are getting so good that it's like, whichever one you choose to use, just throw on Opus and use it for everything for a while. And it's less about the actual models and whatever like app you're using and more about just how do you personally find a way for it to make you even more creative, and then take that creativity and make it really capable into something that can, have an impact.
Yeah, I think something people struggle with is I think people will build things and then kind of do it in a silo and then not talk about their work. And I think a lot of success, or for people who want to step more and do more of this as their full-time job, need to do more internal marketing and kind of championing of what they've built. And I think the trainings and office hours you've done are a great example of that too. How do you share and talk about the things that you've built?
Yeah, I think a lot of people that I work with would probably be like, that sounds like me. Like I sometimes don't do the best job of promoting my own work, but I get it. Like especially for something that people are new to, and if they step out and build an application or a workflow with AI, it can be scary to put that out in front of people. We really try to champion that. Part of like the enablement side of my role is being ever present in like one of our Slack channel communities. It's just called like AI Builders, and we champion it to be a place for non-engineers to ask like AI questions. And so we like proudly champion that like this is a place for us to ask whatever we want. And, sometimes if people have something worth sharing that I know about, I will sort of put them on the spot, and I'll put a post in there and be like, hey, shout out to this person. We worked together on building her first application, and it is so cool. You guys should go check it out. And just trying to like sort of get that ball rolling. But yeah, I think it's just like creating opportunities like that, whether it's through like Slack or, regular recurring meetings, to really put people's work out there and show them that everybody wants to be really excited about what we are all doing. And as soon as they see something, they are like way more blown away by it than we expect people to be. And then it usually has like really useful, inspiring qualities about it where it like makes somebody be like, oh, I could do something similar, but then like change it for a different use case or my role and maybe do something really cool. So yeah, it's definitely one of the, I think, more complex sides of enablement is like getting people to openly and freely share what they're working on, because alongside all of this, people are still trying to do their jobs, right? And we're all super busy. And so, yeah, it's just kind of like trying to be that like always on like advocate for getting people like to share their stuff and encouraging that sharing and being like, dude, it's going to be great. People are going to love it. Just put it up there.
Yeah, I think so much of success here too is building something and sharing it to get inspiration. And then that, if you share something, someone else, like you said, will get inspired by it, and then they'll build something similar or remix what you have too. How do you, is there a centralized way that you organize all the systems or tools that you've built at Block?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's definitely a challenge. First of all, just a challenge to know everything that is out there that people are building and then try to like wrangle it up and, get people to contribute to it. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've done is trying to create some kind of like internal surface area for people to be able to freely contribute, and that's usually like in the form of like an internal, just like, application where it's like, hey, if you guys build something, you can post it here. We also, again, like just in Slack, like we try to get people to share stuff there, and we will like bookmark it or keep like, like a pinned list or like a canvas with like links to everything that people have built. But that's definitely like one of the challenges, especially in a larger org, is knowing what has already been built so that I don't try to build it and make like a worse version of it. But also, yeah, just to find inspiration from it.
Is there a central like GitHub repo that you store skills or things in like that too?
Yeah, actually. So Block has, an agent, like mono repo in GitHub, and it has all the skills and MCPs that have been built internally in them. And that gets rendered externally in an internal web application in like a skills marketplace. And I actually, just recently started finally contributing some of the skills I had created to that skills marketplace. And it's so validating and exciting to be like, oh, wow, this is like, there's 3,000 skills in here, many of which are like maintained by engineering teams doing super complex work. But, there's stuff all across the board in there, and being able to contribute to that. You feel like that spark of participation where like you're crossing into like now really being a part of something. And I think that's what, also grabs people. And I try to encourage them as well, like to build an MCP for something if it doesn't already exist and contribute it to the repo and get it up in our marketplace. And it'll be really exciting.
3,000 skills. That's a lot.
I mean, that's just off the top of my head. Like there's literally so many, but like I said, the majority of them are, pretty heavily engineering focused, which like makes, total sense. But there's a lot of really good ones for like marketing use cases too, like copywriting. Our writing team and our design intelligence team have done a really great job of creating tools to ensure that people are able to build and be independent in their building while still creating really high quality outputs that align to the sort of bar that we have internally in terms of consistency and quality.
What is that bar? Do you have to like get it code reviewed before you push it in there? How does that work?
Yeah, it just depends. Like, I think it depends on the scale of the skill, but yeah, like we have an internal writing skill, and something like that has a lot of different contributors and a lot of different eyes on it because it is going to be used really, really widely. So I think that the common sort of practice is, if it's something super specific, it's cool to just get like, a basic review on it. But then, something I think that people at Block are really awesome about is soliciting feedback on things that are going to be widely impactful. And so reaching out to multiple teams and being like, hey, we're working on this. Do you guys have any like input, or is there anything we're missing? Are there any blind spots? Is there anything we should add before we, roll it out? And so, yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. You talked about building an MCP server. I've never built one, but I'm building one right now.
Nice.
Actually for this podcast. So people can kind of pull clips or insights from it. We can surface it in a more public way. Can you walk through what it's like building an MCP server?
Yeah, I mean, I can try. There will probably be a lot of people who hear this and are like, oh my God, that's way off. But yeah, I think, I look at it in terms of what are the most impactful functions of like the application that I'm trying to access across the MCP. And I've done this a couple of times with turning internal applications that I've built into having like kind of companion MCPs, because it's really great to give people a web app to go to like build an email campaign with AI. But also if they want to do that from Claude Code or Goose or Cursor, having an MCP that can do all of that as well fits into some people's workflows better. You already have it sounds like a good sense of, right, like the things you want people to get out of it, whether it's like pulling clips or the list of guests or the schedule of episodes or, something like that. And so figuring out those, and then like those become your tool functions, which are like the core capability of your MCP. And then really fine tuning the tool function instructions, especially, kind of planning for a user who might have like 15 plus MCPs, enabled in their session, and being like, okay, like how are they going to be able to casually and conversationally say, show me Nick's latest guest on his podcast, and have that route to the appropriate MCP and, get them exactly what they want. And so that's where I think that was one surprising part in the first couple MCPs I built, was fine tuning those tool function like instructions to really like hone in and make them really, really capable of kind of like grabbing those contextual inferences that it should, kick in and grab something for the user.
Yeah. One thing I've struggled with is going kind of from single player to multiplayer mode. So meaning like building something for myself, and then how do you extend that so my whole team can use it? And I've struggled with, do I make it a web app? Do I make it more of an MCP thing that's more native in their workflow? And lately I've been gravitating more towards the MCP kind of style of thinking, because when you build something for yourself, you just intimately know how it all works. And the second you give it to your team, they're brand new users that you have to support and walk through of like, oh, I made this decision and that decision. And so do you find that in your work too, of the struggle from single to multiplayer?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good way of putting it. And we were actually, I was talking about this with someone last night that I work with, about whether to go with a web application for the team or just go straight to an MCP and like agent skills. And I think my recommendation was, you can start with a web app, because you can always extend that capability into an MCP built off of those endpoints. And so I think recommended like go with the web app, right? And then you can then build the MCP off of that and give people the best of both worlds, or whatever makes sense to them. But that's such a good way of putting it too, though, is like you understand everything intimately about something that you build, and then you kind of like turn it loose on people and they ask you questions for something that you feel like is obvious. And so that's been like a good learning too, and like stepping back and really being able to receive all of that as like the very valuable user feedback that it is, because it tells you so much about what you have built by the questions that people ask about it. My typical process, I think, is to prototype something with a web app, get it to where it's making sense for people and it's actually functional and they're able to use it. And then, yeah, after that, figure out if we need to extend it with like agent skills or MCPs.
To switch gears a little bit, is there a focus on measuring the impact of some of the work that you've done, either in terms of time savings or ROI?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a really prescient discussion right now across all of AI, especially like, in the face of like AI costs and things like that, is like making sure that people are getting the the best thing out of, the cost that is coming from using all of these AI tools. And I think a lot of people are still grappling with like, what is the right metric? For a minute, it was kind of like, oh, like we'll like count tokens. And it's like people were token maxing at Meta, just using AI tools constantly for everything to try to show that they were using them. And now we're like kind of seeing that pulled back a little bit. And yeah, the discussion is really becoming much more about how do you get the most efficient and impactful outputs from AI. And I think right now it's leaning really heavily towards time savings. For me personally, like I think building internal tools, it makes a lot of sense. It can be hard to quantify sometimes. If I'm building a tool for our lifecycle marketing team to use AI to generate email templates faster and more efficiently, it depends on how granular you want to get with it, because every email template is sort of different and maybe varying levels of complexity. And so, the amount of time that it takes to manually build each of those is a little different. So there's a little bit of like rounding and, curving the numbers a little bit to make it like standardized so that it is measurable. But yeah, we try to sort of base everything around how much we are using the tools for, what those outputs functionally are, and then how much time we're getting back from them.
Do you have a rough estimate of how many hours that y'all have saved?
No, I don't off the top of my head. It's something that I think we are still figuring out the best way to like show in sort of like a typical dashboard type view, right? But it's just, I would say the pace that we are able to move at today is exponentially faster than it was a year ago. And it almost feels hard to quantify because it's like everything. It's hard to put a number to, for sure.
Yeah, I find that with our team too, is that, we're right now a Series C company. I worked at a Series C company before ChatGPT came out, and our marketing team is about half the size of the former company I worked at. And I feel like our output is so much higher and we're moving a lot faster. So there is this kind of innate sense of higher velocity here that is just standard now at Profound, but is kind of hard to measure comparatively to like what it was before.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys are in a cool spot because you are sort of younger and coming of age in this new world rather than being a company that was well established sort of before it all. And I'm curious how, if you've noticed or, based on your experience, does it feel markedly different to be like a Series C company in the era of AI than previous?
It feels so different. I thought AI is kind of everywhere in our marketing function and across the whole company. And we have a culture of velocity too. Internally, our core value is fractal speed. It's kind of, it's across the whole company of, don't wait until next week to have a meeting, do it today, find someone 5 minutes or 10 minutes here or there. Like, what can you ship today? And I think that's just so core to our company ethos. And that's just helped us move at a higher pace than previous companies I've been at, and AI enables us to actually to do that. And so I found that to be true for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a great way of putting it. It actually it resonates with me too. And I think for Block, it's like that was sort of always the philosophy of like an aspect of Block, like the engineering teams and the product teams. We're trying to constantly ship new features so that Square sellers, can get more time back to actually run their business and live their life and spend less time, managing a suite of tools that just should work for them. And so the teams have always been shipping as fast as possible. And then I think in the era of AI, it's like that sort of philosophy really became actionable for everybody else in the company. And it's like, hey, if there's something that needs to get done, you can now do it. Like the blockers that existed in the previous world are gone because AI can enable you to completely blow past them.
Yeah, I feel like I have superpowers now. I feel like as a marketer, I've always wanted to build things or do things or make a landing page or do this. I have to go put in a ticket for engineering and then compete with product priorities. And now I can just build and ship things. Yeah. Yesterday, I made a full application page for people who want to be a guest on the podcast. Very well designed, hooks into Asana, has a whole kind of like workflow built off of it. And that's something I wouldn't have been able to do in the past. And I think that's what makes me excited about the time that we're building in, and marketing engineering in general is what it unlocks for people who are super curious.
Yeah, that's a great use case. Like you're totally right. That's something that, you would have had to have either bought another third-party tool to hook into Asana, or to your point, like ask a engineer to make a trade-off between building something for your customers and building something for you. And the fact that we can just do these things now is so inspiring to me. And yeah, I think it might have been on one of your posts recently that I was like, the gap between like having an idea and shipping something is completely gone. And the best thing that people need to have now is just like the viable idea. And if you have the idea and the use case and it makes sense, then there's really nothing standing in your way. And it's so exciting.
When people come to you with ideas or requests, do you have kind of like a system to prioritize or triage, or how does that whole intake process work?
Yeah, they usually have a pretty good idea of what it is they are wanting to build. Sometimes it might be turning a legacy Google spreadsheet into like an actually functional web app on top of a database that is much more dynamic and has AI functionality to give like daily digests and updates and automated alerting and stuff like that. So usually they'll come in and they'll be like, hey, we have this spreadsheet that we've been maintaining for years and it's awful, right? And everybody hates it and we have to manually update everything and we want to turn it into a actual like AI product so that we can spend less time managing it and just still get all of the benefits out of it. But other times, like we've definitely had discussions with teams where it's like, what is causing you like the most pain, or what is slowing you down, or, taking away from your ability to have impact, and just starting those conversations super openly and, not even focusing on AI initially and just being like, what is making your job harder, or what would make you able to be more impactful for our customers faster. And it's really, really cool to hear different perspectives and different people's ideas of what that looks like to them. And then, I love just having a super collaborative approach and being like, well, what if we did something like this? Does that make sense? And they're like, no, not really. Like that wouldn't really work for us. Or, that would be cool, but like nobody would use it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Then like, let's not do it. And we eventually like arrive at something that feels like a viable path to like at least an initial prototype. Sometimes it's really straightforward and they're just like, oh my God, yes. If you build this for us, it will be amazing. I'm like, okay, cool. Easy. Other times it's like, all right, let's try it and like let's build this prototype. We'll like roll it out to the team, see how it goes. We'll get a lot of feedback and then we'll figure out whether we want to continue to improve it or if this is something that's not worth pursuing.
It seems like good guiding principles too of what can you build or they build that helps them have a higher impact or helps you serve your customers more. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of like the overarching theme of how you filter or prioritize things?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think everybody does at Block. It's, especially like on the Square side, it's like, how do we give time back to sellers to, again, like let them run their business in the best way that they can. And that's usually like the guiding principle. And, there's so many different aspects to make that happen. But yeah, people usually start from that place. And again, like those conversations are usually around like, what is keeping you from being able to, give more time back to sellers?
Mm-hmm. In the time that you've been in this role, do you have an estimate of how many tools or systems you've shipped?
Oh man, I know that I have built at least like 40 Databricks apps. I'm a huge fan of Databricks. We use them constantly and their application kind of feature is awesome for prototyping. And I use it a ton. But yeah, I would say like over 50 at this point between, applications, MCPs, prototypes, all sorts of things. Yeah, there's been a lot.
That seems like a lot. Yeah, love that. Was there one thing in maybe Claude Code that you've learned recently that has been a big unlock for you of like, oh, I wish I knew this sooner?
Oh man, that's a great question. Yeah, actually, I think I was kind of late to the curve on like slash commands. This is like a very niche thing, but like you can do like, slash context and it will tell you like the current context of your current session, or slash model to like change the model, all of like basically just like the equivalent of like keyboard shortcuts, right? I felt like I was super late to the game, and I was just like a vanilla Claude code user for like ever, just like pounding away at my keyboard like a caveman. And then finally something kind of like clicked, and I was like, oh, slash commands are really cool. And then I learned that you can really easily make your own. And so I'm like, oh, I can create a slash command to wrap up every session so that I can like persist everything I've worked on in that session in a way that makes it super easy to hand off to the agent that starts the next session. And I can just like kind of keep that recursive loop like going between sessions a lot easier. So now like, yeah, I have, I'm all in on the slash commands.
What is it? What'd you call it?
So I have two that like are very foundational to my workflow. I have a slash command called wrap it up. And so what that does basically, I can be like, okay, cool. Yeah. Like looks good. Let's wrap it up. And the agent will sort of go through the session. It will create a handoff doc for the next agent. It'll create a session memory doc, and then just ensure that any of like my linear issues or like GitHub repos like are up to date. All the files are committed and pushed and everything like that. Like there's no loose ends or anything. And then once it's done, it'll be like, hey, here's everything I just did. We're fully wrapped up. You're good to close. And then when I start a new session, I can use, I think I called it boot up. So it's just like, I'll run like the boot up command, and it goes and it specifically looks for all of those exact files that were just wrapped up by the previous agent. And so it saves a ton of time for myself in needing to sort of provide context on where I was at, what I was working on. Cause, sometimes things come up or you hit like your context window limit or whatever happens, and you're in the middle of working on like a new feature for an application. And, it's really not a lot of fun to have to like go back through and tell a story about everything that you were just working on with the previous agent and hope that they understand it in the way that you do, and then try to keep working from there. So yeah, it's been super fun, and I think it's made things a lot more efficient for myself.
Is that something you could share with us afterwards?
Sure. Yeah. I can. I recently shared it with some people at Block. Somebody asked like a question of like, how do I give my agents memory? And it's like, well, like this is one of the big things is like LLMs are stateless. Every session starts like completely fresh. What is the best next thing we can do to sort of bridge the gap between sessions? I have both of mine are hyper personalized for me. And so I had to kind of distill them down to a little bit more of a generalized version. But yeah, I'll totally send them over.
That's amazing. I would selfishly love to see it.
Cool.
Something I've discovered recently is /goal.
Oh,
like you give it an endpoint, and then it just cranks away in the background. If it gets stuck, it'll kind of fix itself and just kind of keep going. I've struggled with keeping up with all the innovation in Claude Code too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips there of how you stay on top of this?
Oh man, that's such a good question. I was thinking about this on the ride over, because it is not just Claude Code, but just everything. Like it's so hard to stay on top of everything coming out, all of the innovation, all of the tools, all of the providers, everything they're shipping. And firstly, I think it also goes back to what I said earlier about like finding the way to work with AI to be as creative as possible, unconstrained from the tooling itself, because the tools are constantly changing and they're going to keep changing. It is also, really satisfying to feel like sort of what's happening in the world of AI. And I actually did this over a weekend. Last week was on my personal computer. I set up a system that runs basically like a deep research every night, and then sends me an email newsletter in the morning. And it is optimized for marketing engineering. And so it will pull from like academic papers, all of the frontier labs like Anthropic and OpenAI. It'll scan through like a few different like Reddit subreddits and a few other sources, and it will kind of like compile everything and then look through it and be like, what is the most relevant for somebody working in marketing engineering? And then once it has that distilled down, it will editorialize it and sort of rewrite it into like an email newsletter format, because the first couple outputs were like super academic and technical. And I was like, this is not what I want to read at 7 a.m. when I'm waking up and having coffee and like checking my email. And so I definitely had to refine it. And so now I get like a nice little like email every morning that's like, here's what's happening in the world of AI in a way that is like relevant to you and compelling. So that's been like something that I personally just did because I was very much feeling the weight of how do I keep up with all of this? And so I don't think there's a lot of usefulness in like trying to keep up on absolutely everything. And so finding a couple of the places where you feel like the best information is surfacing and just trying to keep tabs on those and being confident that that is probably going to be good enough and that you don't have to cover the entire swath of the, whole AI industry every day.
Can you share that with us too?
Excuse me. Yeah. I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, I wonder if I should let a few of my coworkers sign up for this. And then I was like, oh my God, can you imagine how like dorky I'm going to sound being like, hey, do you guys want to sign up for my newsletter I made over the weekend about AI stuff? And you're like, dude, really?
Yes. I think they want to. I want to subscribe. I want all the information too.
No, totally. It would be good motivation to like continue to improve it and make it better for sure.
Mm-hmm. As you were talking, one idea I had is build a skill or a loop or something that goes through and looks at what / commands you've used and then what haven't you used, and have Claude tell you like, hey, you haven't used this or that, or loop or whatever before. Like maybe you should try that next time, and kind of almost have it build, like almost tell you what you're missing out on.
Yeah, that's such a good call. And I can't believe I haven't thought about doing that for like / commands specifically, because I was actually just telling somebody this at work like 2 days ago. And I think it's something that is one of the less obvious things that as soon as people learn it, it totally changes their world. But like, asking AI to sort of go back through your previous sessions and tell you about the work that you do together and let that inform, anything. I had somebody who was like, hey, how can I use this skill for like my weekly, like sort of look back on like the work that I've done. And I was like, oh yeah, like, here's how you can use it. And they were like, oh great. I've been using something else and it's like super like fine tuned for me. And now I'm going to have to kind of start over. And I was like, well, one thing you could do is ask the AI like, hey, based on all of our previous sessions or as many as you can kind of go through, look at all of the kind of work that I do in my role and the work that I use AI for. And then tell me how that can help optimize the skill that we're going to use to do my weekly roundup. Whether it's like / commands or like, the 3,000 skills in the block skill marketplace. One of the things I told somebody to do, I said, give that link to Claude and say, look through, all of our previous sessions and come up with like a tiered list in terms of priority of like the best skills that I absolutely need, ones that might be good for me, and then everything else that I can just like not worry about, so that I can not have that in the back of my mind about like maybe I'm not using something I should be. And so, yeah, I think like, especially with people using AI regularly, you can just ask it for input, because it's getting so much input from you that it has a, pretty good handle on what you do.
Yeah, AI is great at filtering things. It's great at doing research for you. It's great at helping you prioritize of these 3,000 skills based on what you know about me. Which one should I use and which one should I ignore, versus you going through and scrolling manually. Yeah.
Based on everything you know about me, which episodes of Nick's podcast should I listen to first, or in what order?
Yes. Yeah, well, I'll add that to my MCP after this.
Yes, there you go.
Where do you see your role kind of evolving going forward?
Oh man, that's a great question. Right now, for me personally, it is sort of expanding and just kind of like solidifying the scope of what it means to be like an AI marketing engineer. I think it's still pretty fluid and dependent upon sort of the organization and the kind of work that's being done. And so I would love to, more definitively kind of like solidify like what that actually means in my current role, and have a really strong way of defining it. And then also like, showing the impact of that sort of role definition. And then, hopefully kind of bringing more people into that circle. There's a lot of people like me at Block, and we're all kind of just like dispersed and in our sort of like functional organizations doing similar sorts of things. And so I think there's an opportunity at some point in the future to, whether through like a formal kind of like team structure or informal, but just kind of like create a stronger thread sort of between all of these people. There's somebody on the legal team that builds awesome stuff with AI. There's somebody on the paid marketing team that builds awesome stuff with AI, and they're all throughout the company. And so I think it would be really cool to like bring us more together. And I just haven't figured out the right way yet.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the goal of this podcast too, is how do you get people on who can talk about the work that they're doing? Because at smaller companies, it might just be one person, and then they struggle with how do I find other people to talk and share and learn from? And it sounds like at Block, there's lots of people maybe who are all building together. And do you think there's a future where you all kind of come together in one like centralized marketing engineering kind of like org?
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, anything's possible. It would be super cool. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right that like this podcast and just like you personally, like us connecting, it was one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool to find somebody like me out in the world, because I have found those people internally, and they are like my people at work, and being able to find those connections outside as well is really gratifying and also solidifying and makes it feel like what you're doing is really like on the right kind of path, because you see somebody like you out there championing like marketing engineering, and you're like, oh wow, okay, this is really cool. There are other people doing this, and there's a lot of people really excited about it. That makes me feel great about what I'm doing, and I want to keep pushing myself.
What is it like being a marketing engineer inside of Block right now?
I mean, it's pretty close to how I would describe my dream job. It's so fun. Block has a super strong culture of wanting everyone to be a builder, and it's something that's championed throughout the entire company. And part of how I got into this role was, Block released an open source agent harness called Goose around 2 years ago. And when that came out, we really were encouraged and empowered to dive into using it and exploring it and figuring out the ways that it could empower us to be more efficient and more impactful. And so I really tried to take advantage of that. And shortly after Goose's release, they started doing like a video series called Goose Offs, where you would get paired with somebody in the company who you either did or didn't know, and you would basically both get the same exact prompt to build something. And the host would show one person for like a few minutes, and then like switch over to you and see how you were doing, and go back and forth. And everybody watching could like see, this product take shape from two different perspectives using the exact same tool and the exact same initial prompt. Doing things like that and really fostering a culture of like getting into the tools and being excited to use them. And then, also just giving access, like the enablement piece is so big. I feel so lucky because Block has opened up access to every AI tool that I could possibly want to use. Whisperflow is one that has like caught on huge, and everybody loves it and everybody uses it. Goose is getting better all of the time, and we're all super proud of it being like a Block product, and the people that are behind it are incredible engineers and AI minds. And so you just feel like it's really inspiring to be in this sort of world where even if you're not an engineer, you are encouraged and empowered to build as far as you can. And like, if you get stuck or want to take something to the next level, there are so many resources and people you can reach out to. And all of it is met with like a ton of encouragement and openness to sort of help you bridge any of those gaps.
That sounds really exciting.
Yeah, it's so fun, man. We have so much fun, and it all ties back to like the mission of Block of like economic empowerment. Square, Cash App, Afterpay, they are all tools that empower people to have financial freedom in a society where financial tools are typically very monolithic and tightly controlled. And to be able to support products that give people autonomy over their finances and over their own business, that is like, people's lifelong dream to open a business, and the fact that they entrust Square to use that is so cool. And so, being inside of that and, having the opportunity to use these tools to be more impactful and then think about how that impact can have that sort of end result is so inspiring. And it's just, it makes it exciting all of the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement here. And so I'm glad that we connected and glad that we could make this happen too.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
That was Andy McCutcheon, the go-to-market AI lead at Block. We'll drop his LinkedIn in the episode description. If you're listening, just a heads up that we put these on the official Profound YouTube page. And if you're watching, we're on all the podcast apps too. If you want to go deeper, head to tryprofound.com. There's a free marketing engineer university, case studies, our manifesto, and much more. I'm Nick Lafferty. Keep building.